Thank you very much for your invitation and appreciate for the initiative to bring together the African youth and reflect on the role of the youth on agriculture and especially on how to develop the continent. As has been already said, my name is Alfred Bizoza. I'm going to talk briefly about what I think are the major challenges facing the youth for them to engage in agriculture, but also try to indicate the different opportunities that exist for them to get more jobs and also get more income that comes from the sector. I will talk briefly in terms of the trends on youth in engagement in agriculture. After the introduction, then I will talk about youth engagement in agriculture, specifically for the region in Africa. And then I will talk about those challenges that face the youth, as well as the opportunities that are available. And I will also stress why young people should be engaged in agriculture, and I will also end with some concluding remarks. We all agree that agriculture remains an important and driving sector of the African economy. It's the main source of livelihood for the majority of people in rural sub-Saharan Africa. The sector contributes about 15% of GDP, employment for 50% of the labor force, where 47% are women, and also main income source for Africa's rural population, which is estimated at 64%. Agriculture production in Africa has increased steadily over the last 30 years, with a value almost tripled, plus 160%. These are the estimates before the current COVID-19 pandemic. And then the agriculture growth is on average 4.3% during the period 2003 and 2017, which is 1.7 less than 6% annual growth set by the CADEP. The agriculture labor productivity has also grown up to 1.6% annually for the period 2003 and 2008, and at 2.5% annually from 2008 to 2017. Land productivity also has grown more rapidly at 3.2% and 5.3% during the two periods. When we come to the context of Africa in terms of population, we see that the population is currently estimated at 1.2 billion, where the majority are women and youth. But this population is yet to grow for many reasons. The entire population is relatively young, with a median age of 19.7 years old compared to 30.4 years old for the global median age. That shows how the population in Africa is basically young and very active. These trends in terms of population growth summarize the scale of agriculture challenges on how to feed the ever-increasing population in Africa, creating wealth and conserve resources for the future. The above challenges, among others, call for the transformative changes in agriculture and food system to achieve Africa without hunger and malnutrition, and also to protect the natural resources base required for feeding present and future generations. Responding to the increasing demand of food through the current prevalent food farming and processing systems will add much pressure on already scarce land, soil and water resources, and further degradation of the quality of these resources that are available. That implies that the more we continue to cultivate the agriculture the way we used to cultivate, or if we don't change the farming system, this is not going to add value to our land or to our scarce resources, which is land. Again, this is going to deteriorate the quality of the land in terms of soils, in terms of fertility. So calling for more technology and for more innovations for us to be able to respond to the increasing demand in terms of food, which is also linked to the population growth, which is also increasing. Now, I wanted also to bring a few slides on how we should also think on how decolonizing Africa, or on how to bring the independence in agriculture. During the colonial period, farmers were required to grow crops for export, preliminary to provide raw materials for industrial and production, and in the metropolitan countries, which crops majority of farmers did not use in their households. Apart from this time, or the modern period where now people can drink coffee, can drink tea, which was not the case in the past. The dominant cash crops for export in Africa, we see cocoa, we see coffee, tea, palm oil, and rubber in the rainforest areas of Central and West Africa. We see groundnuts and cotton in the Sahel belt of West Africa. We see sisal, tea and coffee in East Africa, and sisal, sugarcane and tobacco in Southern Africa. All these crops are still produced across Africa and exported without going through the necessarily preliminary crop processing for value addition. In other words, we are exporting them without going through the basic transformation or the basic processing that will add value or make another increment in terms of the price that is paid to the farmer. Now, the domestic consumption of the exported products is still small. For example, the domestic consumption of coffee has increased between 2.2 and 5.3 million of 60 kilograms bags in this period, 1990 up to 2015, 2016, especially in Ethiopia being the main consumer for the coffee. In the 1970s and 1980s, African agriculture began with chronically poor performance due to leadership problems, economic mismanagement, corruption, and political turmoil and internal conflict, which many African countries have experienced. We have seen also some countries now. Let's see what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in the northern part of Africa, what is happening in the western part of Africa with Boko Haram. All these Boko Haram are Africans fighting with other Africans. All these instabilities have caused now the decline in the production, focusing on economic activities because of those conflicts, and the governments were much concerned by bringing or securing its population. During the same period, agriculture output in sub-Saharan Africa has grown by only 1% per year on average, compared to 3% in Asia and other developing regions of the world. In 1980s, 1990s, Africa ushered in the structural adjustments programs and the economic recovery programs of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The programs exhibited the lack of attention on the rural sectors, smallholder farmers, and food crops. Some of the immediate effect of structural adjustment was to raise the price of agricultural inputs, especially those of yield-enhancing technologies such as fertilizers, pesticides, and machinery, which are typically imported. Furthermore, private sector investment did not materialize as expected, and new problems related to market failure also surfaced. In July 2003, African heads of state at the second ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union launched CAADP, the Comprehensive Agricultural Program in Maputo, Mozambique. The main difference between CAADP and preceding development strategies in Africa is that it emphasized the role of agriculture as the engine of economic growth and development encompassing countries. Since its launch in 2003, CAADP has significantly raised the political profile of agriculture and has contributed to more specific, purposeful, and incentive-oriented agriculture policies, and has promoted greater participation of multiple state and non-state actors in agriculture policy, dialogue, and strategy development. It is clear from the above that the efforts made in politics or in political freedom are not equal to those spared for the economic activity or development, in particular the agriculture sector. Now the question is, what will happen if European Union, USAID, DFID, the World Bank, and other development partners decide not to support the agriculture sector in African countries one day? And I think this is obvious, like this period we are going through of the COVID-19, where you see now the focus has been on how really to promote or to constrain the spread of the pandemic. So more attention is given to the health sector, but still little resources are going to come to the sector. The sector of agriculture is likely also going to be affected, not because they don't want it, but because the resources are also scarce. The measurement of decolonized African agriculture is the ability of Africa to finance its agriculture and strengthening its value chain. Now, let me come back with some trends on youth engagement in agriculture before I come to the challenges and the opportunities we have in the sector. Globally, youth are aged between 15 and 24, which accounts to 1.2 billion. And this is also equivalent to 18% of the world's population, and also 25% of the total working age, based on the statistics of UN 2015. In Africa, about 226 million are youth aged between 15 and 24, or roughly 20% of the global youth population. In sub-Saharan Africa, with population estimated at 1.2 million, 1 million inhabitants, it's accounting for 17% of the world's population. The share of young population aged below 25 years is amounted to approximately 62% of the total population. According to the International Labour Organization, youth are between 18 to 35 years old. In Africa, youth is aged in the range estimated at estimated at 364 million. Between 10 and 12 million new young workers are coming from and looking for employment every year. About 68% of the youth are employed in agriculture, whereas 23% are involved in non-agriculture business. Now, coming to the Eastern African countries, I was not able to get the statistics for Burundi, and I have only the statistics for Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, and South Sudan, where you see the range is between 21% and also 35.4%, where the youth basically is employed in agriculture. Now, agriculture sector remains the backbone of the region and based on also its economy. It also employs a big share of population, including youth. It employs 67% of youth in Tanzania, 64% in Uganda, and 60% in Kenya. Youth unemployment is primarily a problem of labor demand. So you can see majority of youth are also graduating from the university, which contributes to the unemployment burden, to the governments, to the development partners, and also families. The engagement of youth in agribusiness can be an important strategy to create employment opportunities among youth. I think this has been already embarked on by different governments and different policies. Different people are aware that the agribusiness sector could be an alternative option to create more jobs, especially for the youth. Globally, we see that youth are encouraged also to get involved in the sector. And there are some specific goals where youth are expected to contribute, especially goal number 1, we need to end poverty. So we should not have poor people where we have also youth, active people who can be able to work, and then they are still considered as poor people. So we have also the same goal number 2, ending hunger. You will see majority of countries that suffer from hunger are coming from Africa. Goal number 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. I think these are basically, I've selected purposely these 3 goals to show how globally youth can still also play a big role and also contribute to the development of their respective countries. When you look at the proportion rate of youth living in poverty, which remains high in South Africa, in Southern Africa, we have about 70% compared to 50% in Southern Asia, and also 25% in Northern Africa. The 2030 Agenda, which is the SDGs, calls for the development and activation of sound evidence-based youth policies and action to ensure its full realization. I think many countries in the region now have started to discuss how youth can be really involved, how youth can be employed and create more jobs for them so that they don't constitute a threat rather than an active arm for the development of the respective countries. Now, these are some of the challenges that youth are likely to face, but still they are also, they can still be also addressed. Insufficient access to knowledge on agribusiness skills. So we still have our education system, which needs again to tailor the education to the needs of agribusiness skills so that the youth who are graduating have the knowledge and the skills that is needed for the development of the subsector. Lack of information on agribusiness opportunities, but also the inability to explore the existing opportunities. This is also another area. We see there are some challenges, but still there are also opportunities that are already available, which are not used by the youth. There's also limited agri-entrepreneurship spirit, where people are educated just to ensure that they get the white-collar jobs, but this is not possible. Most of the jobs come basically in the private sector, in enterprises, in entrepreneurship, in the businesses. That's where we find many people are earning even good money than just white-collar jobs. So we have also limited access to land. Land is one of the major factors of production, but the land that we have in Africa is very important and it's very huge. The efficiency use of it is the most important question we should think. And now to use it efficiently requires new knowledge, new expertise that are expected to be brought by the youth or educated youth. Inadequate access to financial services in agriculture. We also see difficulties in accessing green jobs and also limited access to markets. So these challenges of markets, they become challenges because we don't see innovation on how to link farmers with potential consumers. We have seen, for instance, in this period of COVID where people had to order food online, which was not the case in many countries. But because of that challenge, the use of technology became very useful. So why do we have to wait situations like this for us to learn on how to address the challenges we are facing? So we can embrace the good practices or the good investment already our government have put in place in terms of innovation and also in information and technology, use them to address the challenge that we see like access to markets. This should not be a problem. Since we have communication facilities, we have transport facilities, though there are still some challenges in terms of feeder roads, but these are the challenges that still most of the governments are planning to address. But also there are some opportunities. Despite existing challenges, government of Eastern African countries have set some enabling frameworks necessary to provide an opportunity for increased economic development through youth involvement in agriculture. I think this also brings me an aspect that I keep thinking. How do we take advantage of the frameworks or collective frameworks that are within our countries, within the region? How do we benefit on the prospects of the Eastern African community? How do we benefit on these trade commitments that the countries are putting in place? How do we benefit from different coalitions. I think coming together is one thing, but how do we use those different opportunities and sharing experience to address the challenges that we are facing, including the employment of the youth? These also include national youth agribusiness strategies as well as national youth policies. So these policies are very important. They create enabling environment for the youth to claim their rights and also to claim the space to use the abilities that they have gained so that they can explore more of these agribusiness and agriculture-related opportunities. So there are also investment opportunities by the government. Also, the sector, which is agriculture, is supposed really to employ more active people. I do remember when I had to decide if I have to do my master's in agricultural economics. My professor asked me, why do you choose agricultural economics rather than economics? Because I was coming from economics in undergraduate. I told him that, you see, Africa will continue to rely on agriculture, and we see agriculture being the backbone of our economy. Even those countries that have developed, those developed countries, they started by agriculture. The agriculture created the raw materials that are needed both for the industry, but also for the services. So the agricultural value chains have both the ability to generate the raw materials for the industries, but also create commercial services that are linked to the sector or to the different parts of the value chain. So we have social capital, we have capacity building. These are some of the opportunities that are available. But let me come also to this question: why young people should be engaged in agriculture? First of all, let me start from those challenges I've just mentioned. These are the people who are going to bring solutions to the challenge related to limited access to and delay in supply of quality seeds and fertilizer. These are the people who are going to address the challenges linked to agricultural financing. One of the challenges, most of the youth, when you talk to them, they will tell you that we don't have access to loan. We don't have access to credit. But the more we create more different demand to the banks, they will also create products that are adapted to the demand side. So we can negotiate the loan. As long as our business is profitable, as long as we show that the business is going to be profitable, I don't think any bank will refuse to give you the money so that you can invest. So the youth will also bring solutions to the issue of limited access to sustainable market and also limited post-harvest handling facilities. Issue of contract farming has not yet received a good shape, and this has to come with the youth, with the expertise that is needed. We should not continue to rely on the farming that is led by our grandmothers, our mothers and our fathers. Why should we ignore the sector that has led majority of you to go to school or to go to the universities? Your mother was a farmer, your father was a farmer, now you become a graduate, but you don't want to go to agriculture or to agribusiness, and yet you are still relying on the sector. The youth will help us also to address the post-harvest losses. Post-harvest losses in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, is estimated at 30% on average, or even higher in some countries. There are also perishable crops, which face more losses due to inadequate storage facilities and other post-harvest handling infrastructure. These are the areas, those who are educated, engineers, agribusiness person, these are the people that are the right one to bring solution to some of these challenges. Again, the youth is likely to bring new expertise and knowledge in collaboration with farmers. This picture shows you an example of a new innovative model that Rwanda has put in place, what they call the Farmer Field School through Twigire Muhinzi. That's where now they start involving farmers to take part on the extension part or in the delivery of extension services, where some farmers are trained to train other farmers. But these farmers, there are certain level of expertise they may not have. So we need youth that is educated from the universities to come and join them. When I go to the field, like I was standing with this farmer, I learn a lot from them. And what I learn, that's what I bring and put in my papers to address or to bring some advocacy messages or policy recommendation or policy action. So there is a need to have a way of collaborating with them, bring the knowledge that is needed if we need our sector to be developed. Let me stop from here and thank you for the invitation. And one of the key messages I wanted to say is that there is more opportunities for the youth to get engaged in agriculture. Agriculture remains one of the sectors that still has plenty of opportunities that are not used. So if the youth can come and get engaged in agriculture, then there is more opportunities to get more jobs, get more money. And the money will not say that this bill of $5,000 or $100 will not say, I'm coming from agriculture, or I'm coming. It doesn't have any color of the sector. The money has not the color of the sector. As long as you get the money you need and you satisfy your needs, then your issue is addressed. Thank you. And so far, God has blessed Africa. Let's use the resources that is in Africa. Let's use the knowledge that is in Africa. Let's also serve and support people of Africa. Thank you.